I'll start by creating a new web project. And this will be running on Glassfish 4, which I have in this directory under Glassfish 4.1 and Glassfish 4 and Glassfish. And I will be using GDK 1.8. Next, I'll create a servlet class, username servlet, that will be in this package. And for the purpose of this tutorial, we'll only have a doGet method, and I'll also create a chat room server configurator, and a chat room server endpoint, and the HTML client is gonna be default.html, and this will be the title of the HTML page, and inside the body I'll have a form with a text field for entering the username and a submit button that when clicked the doGet method of the servlet would be invoked, the username servlet. So going to the servlet, I'll start here by setting the content type of the response to be text /HTML, and then I'll pick up a PrintWriter instance from the response, and I'll also pick up an HTTP session from the HTTP servlet request, and on this HTTP session I'll set an attribute username to be the request.get parameter, the username, so what's coming from here. Actually, let me do this. I'll have a string username to be this, and I'll replace this, and if the username is different than null, then I'll go ahead and use the PrintWriter in order to generate the response. And this is HTML content that I will be returning. So this is the title, and inside the body, first I'll display the username, and I'll have a text area where the messages exchanged will be displayed, and I'll have a text input field for entering the messages, and a send button. Then when clicked, the send message JavaScript function will be invoked, and here I'll pick up a WebSocket. So WS localhost, I'm using here localhost, and for the purpose of this tutorial I'm hard coding it. So localhost 8080, and this is the project name and the chatroom server endpoint. And when a message comes in, so WebSocket.onMessage, the process message function will be invoked, and the messages coming in will be JSON data. So I'll parse that JSON data, and if the message is different than null, then I'll go ahead and add it to the message text area from here. And for the send message function, when we need to send a message, I'll send the message that is inside the message text from here, and then I'll set the value of that message text to be empty. Next, going to chatroom server endpoint, go ahead and annotate it as a server endpoint, having this chatroom server configurator as a configurator. And for chatroom server configurator, I'll go ahead and extend it from server endpoint config, and I'll import javax.websocket.server. And here I will be overriding this modify handshake method that is called by the container after it has formulated a handshake response. And here I will be picking up the username attribute from the HTTP session, from here, from the servlet. So I did here HTTP session dot set attribute username, and I will be putting that username in the user properties. So server endpoint config instance dot get user properties dot put and I'll put a username. So I'll pick up the HTTP session instance by using request.getHTTP session, and then on that instance I'll call the get attribute to pick up the username, and I'll cast it to a string, and that's what I will be putting here. This is all what I need to do here. Next, let's go to the chatroom server endpoint. Now here I'll maintain a set of chatroom users, and each user is represented by a session. And I'll have the handle open method that I will decorate with the onOpen annotation. So this method will be called once a new connection is established, and the connection is represented by this optional session parameter. And here in this method I'll go ahead and put the passed in session in the set of sessions that I'm maintaining. And I'll have this handle close method. It's decorated with the onClose annotation, and this will be called once the connection is being closed. And in that case I'll go ahead and remove that session from the set of sessions that I am maintaining. And let me have this method handle error annotated with the on error annotation also. And have handle message annotated with the on message annotation. And this method will be called once a new message is received. And I will be using a function to build my JSON string. So build JSON data that takes in a username and a message and returns a JSON string. So notice here this message, then the username and column and the actual message. So if we go to the servlet that will generate the HTML, the incoming message will be processed here. So I'll do json.parse message.data, and I'll pick up the JSON data and then check if the message that's coming in that JSON is different than null. So check if this message is different than null, which contains the username, column, and the message. Now in chatroom server configurator, I put the username in the user properties. So now in the server endpoint, chatroom server endpoint, what I can do in the handle open method, I can call get user properties on the user session and put the username, and I'll pick up that username from the endpoint config instance dot get user properties dot get username. So this is coming from what I set up here. And in the handle message method, I'll go ahead and pick up that username, so user session dot get user properties dot get username. And if that username is different than null, then I'll go ahead and propagate the message to all the users that are in this set. And I'm using here Java 8. So I'll do chatroom users.stream for each, and for each session I'll call the get basic remote and do a send text, and the text will be JSON text using the build JSON data method that we just coded here. Next, let me go ahead and test run this application. So I'll be running it on the Glassfish 4 application server. And actually, let me use Firefox. Okay, so this is the username for this one. And let's say this is the username for this one. So next, let me test run it also on Tomcat 8. So to make it cleaner, let me go ahead and create a new project. Call it WebSocket Project 13 Tomcat 8. And I have my Tomcat in this directory. And I'll be using JDK 1.8. So what I will do is copy this package with everything in it, and drop it here. And it's gonna complain about JSON, so we can download the JSON jar from here, from this website. And I can go to web content, webinf, and the lib directory, and paste it. And let me also copy the HTML page. And let's close this one. Stop this one. And create a new server. started. And we have to change the naming. So let's go to default.html. There is a better way than hard coding the project name, but for the purpose of this tutorial I'll just do it this way for simplicity. So we can go to the servlet also, to add this. And now let me go ahead and let's see, to add and remove. Actually, let me go ahead and stop it and rerun it. And let's open up a new browser. Okay, so let's say this is user 1. Let's say this is user 2. And here we go.